I'm Dave Crane. Hi, I'm Dave Crane. Welcome to Dubai and welcome to Gulfood, the biggest annual food festival on the planet. I'm going to be hosting here in Chef Talks and talking to some of the best known chefs in the world, from right across kitchens and TV shows. People like Heather Mills have got great food types that are on the market, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to have a huge event during social distancing. Come with me. So as we're walking through, the first thing you're going to see is our lovely security guard. He's in charge of making sure that everybody's wearing a mask. And yes, I have got mine, but I've taken it off, otherwise all I'll say to is and you won't be able to hear what I'm saying. So as we come into the room, you'll see exactly how it's set up. It's kind of nice. We've got a couple of different options here. We've got the chef's lounges, which are the areas where we're going to be having the chefs chatting and being interviewed by various people. And as we come in here, we see the main room. Now what we're going to be doing is streaming it live onto the internet across lots of different places and different platforms as well. And I'm going to be on that stage down the bottom down there. So as you can see, as we walk towards it, you can see exactly what it's going to look like when it gets put together. And the challenge is, it's really hard to build up an atmosphere when you've got social distancing. So you're going to make sure that everything you do is safe, that everything you do resonates with people, but also that round of applause, that standing ovation that you might be used to doing a normal gig, they don't exist anymore. But people do appreciate it and they do clap and they do feel privileged to be in here. So typically, if you just have a quick look around, you can have a look at what the space is like. So you can see exactly there, we've got the camera guys just getting set up. It's still early, we haven't allowed people to come in yet. We've already had the shake go around and open the event properly. And so there's a microphone that people are going to be using to ask questions a good distance from the stage. But every single seat here is 2 meters apart deliberately for the privilege of making sure that everyone's safe, because that's a priority in Dubai, to make sure that we have more future events so everyone knows that they can come down here and be in a safe space. So come and see everything the way I see it. So when I'm going to be on stage, I'm going to be interviewing various chefs and various dignitaries. We've got our 2 meters on there, up 2 meters, and this is how things would be for me. So if you come up here, this is the view that I get. I have a monitor down there which is going to show me all the different slides and things that are coming up, and also let me know how long we've got on the timer. As you look out, you can see what it's going to look like all the different seats. Just over here, we've got the guys in charge of sound and light. They're the guys that make sure that I look good and that I sound good, and you never fall out with them because they can make you sound ridiculous and switch off stuff sometimes when you least want it to. And that's what it's like. We're going to be going live in about 5-10 minutes. The chefs are arriving. We've already got them introduced. I already know the kind of questions I'm going to be asking them. Everything from different types of foods, from Japanese cooking to doing shows across Australia, to bring out factory, actually lab processed meats that don't come from animals. They're done in a lab. All these things will be covered over the next couple of days, and I'll be sharing a lot of it with you online. So make sure, if you can, come down to it. If not, catch all the stuff online, and I'll share with you some of the greatest stuff from the best chefs around the world down here at Gulfood, and you can catch me here at Chef Talks. See you soon. There we go. And if suddenly I go quiet, it's because my Madonna microphone keeps moving to one side like this, and I've got to have to keep pushing it down. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you. Welcome to Chef Talks, our own very special arena with social distancing, incredible chefs, incredible speakers. We've got a chef's lounge area as well. And we're specially positioned miles away from everybody else, so none of our riffraff is invited to come in and join us in this very special next 4 days of talking to the most innovative and smart and brilliant minds in kitchens across the globe. Now, normal rules apply. If you'd like to use social media and you'd like to do all that kind of stuff, feel free to do so. If you want to catch up with any of our chefs, they may be around for a short time afterwards, or you can catch up with them at some point during the entire event. I forgot to say, my name is Dave Crane. I should have it on a name badge, but you probably can't see it from this distance, and it doesn't really matter. In fact, I'll probably take this off later on, because if you wear a badge like this, it's great to get into an event, but what happens later on when people look at footage on social media, you look like a little boy who's likely to get lost. And so they've branded you so you can be handed back to your mummy just in case. So I'll probably take this off a little bit later, but we've got some incredible chefs to talk to. So without further ado, if you want to sit down, by the way, and fill up the seats, then you're very welcome to. We only have certain seats, but we might play musical chairs later on. Or whack-a-mole. That'd be an interesting thing to do. Social. No, okay, no whack-a-mole, just a thought. So without any further ado, I'd like to put our hands together, please, and invite our first guest to open up our official Chef Talks, Mr. Tariq Ibrahim. Please. Now I've got to get onto this very dodgy seat.
How are you doing?
Great, I didn't realise we were going to have all this garden furniture.
Let me take your advice and remove this first thing.
Well, I'm scared if I take mine off because the team over there have fitted my headset and everything. I'll just unravel, so I'm going to have to sit here with my little label saying, "Lost boy, please hand in to security guards if he starts crying." But with that in mind, you are one of the most amazing people that I've had the pleasure to meet. And I've interviewed lots of amazing people.
Thank you.
I'm really excited because your story is so different. And I don't know if it's a typical chef story, but it's definitely a you story. Could you start us off and enlighten us on how your love with food first began?
Well, it's very classic. I grew up with 5 women, my mother, my auntie, my grandma, and my 2 sisters, and the only boy. And I was always spending time in the kitchen with my mother. And in the Middle East, my father would walk in and find me with the ladies and say, "Go away. I want you to be a man." And my comment is, "Well, they are all women. What can I do?" So it was a little bit awkward. But since I was young, we were tasting the food that my mom did and my family did, and it was always very, very unique. So from early on, I had the ability to taste food and say, "Wow, this is good, this is not good, this is mediocre, whatever." So that's basically was my start. I went to school, I would finish high school, went to college, and I studied civil engineering, or you can say civil mapping. And all of a sudden, I tried to study aviation. And I went to the States. I spent 4 years studying aviation, and it was just part of my dream.
Aviation, not aviation catering, aviation. Okay. To be a pilot?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I became a pilot.
Wow.
And I had a great time, but on the day of graduation, I was not feeling good. I went to the hospital. They told me that you have blood clot.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't fly.
That's it. Well, I can fly, but there is not one company will insure me. So that's basically ended this career.
Wow.
When I was going to school for aviation, I was always cooking to make some money. And every time I would cook something, they will come and say, "Tariq, this is really, really, really good." So I started, putting one and one together and said, "Well, why don't stay in cooking?" I love cooking, and so I started opening restaurants after restaurants after restaurants. I had 6 restaurants and a catering company in the States, and I was just having the time of my life. Then, this is typical Tariq. I can do something, and then I can turn around and change it.
Wow.
I woke up, my wife is American, and I said, honey, we're moving back to Egypt. And she said, where this is coming from? We're talking now after 23 years in the States.
Wow.
I said, I'm moving back to Egypt. Took my kids, took my lovely, beautiful wife, and we went to Egypt. And since then, I've been there, and life is going happy.
Do you miss being American?
Yes and no. Egyptian will stay Egyptian.
Right.
Living in your environment where you grew up, I'm very rooted in Egypt. I actually sometimes I get a little bit teary because of all the days that I was far from my roots.
Of course.
So, and when you all of a sudden living there and going home to visit, that's a little bit harsh. So I choose to go back.
Leaving is difficult, but then what you did was you left again. So that story about, oh, I miss my family too much, you disappeared because you're a legend now in Australia. Tell me about your Australian love affair of being there.
Well, see, I came to Egypt, and we stayed for about 2 years, and it was really tough. And then I met Meat and Livestock Australia, a guy by name is Ian Ross. He was a fabulous man. And he said, Tariq, what do you do? I said, well, I'm actually out of work. He said, how come? And I said, you know, I'm not working. He said, okay, would you like to work with me? And I said, where? He said, Australia. And I said, no. I'm in Egypt or in America. I'm not going any further than this or this. And he said, you're going to work with me in an Australian company in Egypt. I said, oh my God, this is the ticket. This is what I really want. So I started working with Meat and Livestock Australia, which has huge influence on my family. They really rediscovered my ability to cooking. And I started at 2005, 6 months after I went to Egypt, because I went to the bank and there was $1,000. I was thinking how I'm going to get my family back to America.
Of course.
And I was hired. I started managing 39 countries. Imagine flying from here to here to here to here to here.
Not being a pilot, just flying.
No.
Okay.
Just sitting in the back seat.
Okay.
And it started, you know, the first question I remember he asked me, do you know meat? As any chef, you know, chefs are arrogant somehow, even if they are modest. I said, what do you mean? I'm a chef. And he said, oh, okay, sorry. He's a very diplomatic guy. Then, when I got into the world of meat, I discovered that my knowledge in meat is a nano information. Just taking a piece of meat and cooking it, that's it. But when you get into the world of meat, especially Australian meat, I cannot tell you enough, Dave, how the meat in Australia, it's something moves the economy. It's a huge.
But can I just qualify before you tell me about Australian meat?
Yeah.
Now, for any Australians in the house, I'm going to apologise in advance. My knowledge of Australia is that everything moves wherever you are. There's a lot of moving meat. So can we be specific, whether it's creepy crawly meat or it's slithering meat, what meat are we talking about? Because everything's dangerous.
No, we're talking about livestock.
Okay.
Beef, goats, and lamb.
Wonderful.
Goats. And what I really noticed in Australia, the way they raise the animal, the welfare, the research and development, it's all connected to the government. If you're a farmer, say, and you sell meat to XYZ, and you don't really fulfill all the requirements, you can really get, even though it's a commercial issue, But if you cheat, you can get into jail. It's so tight to protect the consumer.
But it has to be, at the end of the day, the meat that comes out of Australia is so revered worldwide that if it wasn't done properly, for whatever reason, the whole thing gets a bad reputation, and it's really hard to build it up again, so you kind of understand why.
Of course, and also the welfare. The animal welfare in Australia is second to none. They treat the animal as part of the family. You know, how they move them and the regulation that the government put in for this meat or for the animals is just second to none. I would tell you, and I'm very proud to say that, the way that we slaughter meat in Australia, I've never seen anything like that all over the world, and I've been really all over the world with my meat experience. The way they treat the animal, the way they feed, most of the grain fed in Australia, it's fed oats and molasses. So I remember when I went there and they were telling me they are feeding them molasses and oats. I said, can I eat from this? They said, of course. I said, be careful, I will eat it. I said, yes. I got the bowl right from there and I put some milk and I had breakfast.
So you made a very open having breakfast with champion cows. That's fantastic.
Yes. So it's beautiful. And then all the research and the development that we do for the meat, it's just amazing. They go for it. They spend huge amount of money to make sure that this piece of meat or this animal that they will produce meat will be great. Also, they put in mind the environment. You know, the environment in Australia, I believe the greenhouse effect, we went from 52% to 20% since 2005 till now. So they consider everything. It's not just.
So when you say percent of what?
Of the emission.
Okay, yes.
That went from 52 to.
Wow, that's incredible. Because on that subject, I don't want to break your flow because we're going to go through a number of different areas. When we're talking about the importance of looking after your meat and growing it the right way, we also have to not ignore the lab-grown meats. You can buy in a square, you can buy in a circle, and that's a very different industry that's jumping in. Just can I catch on your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a really old-fashioned. I like my meat to be in its natural, beautiful shape. I just don't like getting to. I don't know what to say, but it's kind of like when you have a nice bread or cutlet, and you hold it. But you know, when you start altering things, that's not really good.
Okay, so it's not a controversial subject at all. We'll move on to something else. So you're saying about the fact that when you're involved in the meat industry, apart from you have a love of sharing breakfast with the cows and stuff, when you were working and you were travelling, were there different ways of doing it in different regions across Australia? Was there a single standard that they utilised?
All the meat in Australia follow the same standard, which is the Australian government standard. Let me just tell you a few things. For example, all the farms are almost the same standards. The way they move animal from one place to the other place, it has a regulation. Everything is standard. You can't move an animal from one farm to the other farm for more than 12 hours. You have to stop the truck, get the animal out. The animal on the truck, they have a space where they can move. And then you have to give them rest 24 hours because Australia is huge. So you could just not pack them in a truck and go and take them to the slaughterhouse and you slaughter them. When they arrive to the slaughter, you have the post-exam and the doctor came and they examine all the animal and they feed them and they water them and then they go in. When they get into the slaughter, if the animal goes by itself, there is no they don't spook them, because if you get the animal excited,
It changes the quality.
exactly, the adrenaline will start getting into the muscles because they are spooked. And then the result is not really good. So they get in, they are very comfortable. When they slaughter them, we have 48 or maybe 52 now slaughterhouse. They are all halal. And halal that I've seen in Australia, I've not seen in any other place. The animal gets in, they put them in a box, or if we're talking about lamb, they flip them.
I'm going to stop you there. You know why I'm going to stop you? Because we have a limited amount of time. We can talk about killing animals. We can talk about your TV shows. And
right.
given a choice between the two, that's what I want to go to. You have, and people might not know it, you have this incredible TV show which goes out super frequently, where you've got celebrities which you chop up. No, you don't chop them. but you cook, you interview, you do it live. And Australia is part of that whole experience.
Yes.
Can you explain? Because I know you've done a couple of different shows. What can we see you on?
Well, I started about 10 years ago with Fatafit, which is the channel of food. And then I moved on El Qahira Al-Yom, or in English would be Cairo Today. And the show is about 3 hours. I have a segment consists of 45 minutes. And it's a live show. So during the show, we have a talk show. People are talking on different subject. And then I'm standing there cooking, and they say, "Hey, Tarek, what do you think about this?" I say, "Oh, blah, 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 blah." And we start talking. And then I go back to cooking. And then at the end of the show, I will have the celebrity with my colleagues, and they will come, and we will have a beautiful dinner. 3 people, 2 people, 4 people. The most I had about 17 people, and we had very nice dinner. And just when you see the reaction of the celebrities, they go and say, "This is really me, Tarek?" And I say, "Yes. What's the problem?" And the word that always makes me so happy, we have never ever tasted meat like that. I'm very pro-Australian. I don't use any meat but Australian on my show, and I just give them the meat, and I go to the extent, I say, "Hey guys, this is the side, let's put it on the side. Let's get a piece of meat." I put it in front of them, little bit of salt, no pepper, and I say, "Try." I put it in a plate, and they try to say, "No marination, no secret recipe." I say, "I'm using Australian meat. I don't need, this is my secret." Seriously, this is, guys, this is not advertising, this is just true. That's the reality of cooking. If you use Australian meat, you will have the flavor, the tenderness, the juice, it's just something else.
So you would put Australian meat over any other meat?
Any other.
Is that because you're paid to say that? Or
No. By the way, I'm not paid to say that. Okay? Honestly, I am not paid to say that. This is just reality. And then go and ask chefs. Tell them, what is the Rolls Royce? They'll tell you Australian.
We're going to find out, because we've got lots of great chefs coming through.
Yes!
A few vegetarian ones who might not agree with you, but all the rest of them
They will talk about the Australian product.
Right.
You know, all the veggies that comes from, it's a 22 or 23 million living in a whole continent, surrounded by water. Okay? Pollution is very, very low, or maybe no pollution.
Yes.
What do you expect? Everything is fresh, everything is nice, everything is vibrant. That's it.
So you've got a number of different hats that you've had throughout your entire career, starting off as a pilot, then also a restaurateur owning restaurants, and then going to be a TV presenter. What special projects are you working on right now that we should know
Right
about?
now I'm in Egypt, and I'm doing 5 supermarkets called The Grocery. Really beautiful. I'm doing my first own restaurant in Egypt, and that will be exclusively using Australian meat. Even though it's nowadays it's hard to get, but I have all my production that I will be getting. I'm working on state-of-the-art cooking school in Egypt because lots of people they meet and they say, Tarek, we need to get your experience. We need to share for education chefs. And I'm doing this school, and I'm doing one company meet where we'll be exporting meat from Australia and doing some charcuteries, corned beef, pastrami, sausage, but done the right way.
So would you say that your style leans more towards the way that you cook Australian meats, or would you say that it's more Middle East flavour using the base of Australian meats? What kind of thing do people expect when they come to you?
Actually, they will have both. I don't do Middle Eastern food. I just do basically Western. But in certain dishes that I will be using my heritage and putting that with the Australian meat. So I got the heavy Egyptian flavor with the top of the line meat. You put them together and everyone will be walking saying, wow, I want this.
Amazing.
It's simple.
Just talking to you makes my mouth water and make me wish I'd had more muesli cereal, at least, molasses and oats before I came out, possibly with a cat. Thinking about this whole thing though, I want to shift this slightly to one side, and if you just come in, nice to see you, welcome to Chef Talks. I'm joined by the incredible Tarek Ibrahim, who you get a chance to catch up online. He's got his TV shows, we're talking about Australia and his history and everything else, but what we're going to talk about specifically now is the change in people's tastes since lockdown. Do you think there's a different world now than the way it was before? And if so, in the food world, how is it altered?
Well,
small question.
Well, it's a huge question actually. It's not small. I don't think our palate is being altered. Our palate is our palate. Our taste is our taste. But now we are really, the way I see it, we are focusing on not the quantity, but the quality, because we're not moving as before, we're not going every day to work, we're not traveling, so you really need to lower your quantity of food and focus on quality, instead of having the rice and the potatoes and the veggies and have small and a nice piece of meat that has a lot of protein in it, lots of flavor. That's the way that I really think people ought to do nowadays. The other thing is when you start cooking at home, you start really discovering a lot, because when you have a piece of meat and you put it in a pan and you're cooking it with your own hand and you're smelling all the aroma that it's when the meat or the veggies or whatever you're cooking hits the pan, it puts you in someplace else. It makes you connected to your dish. Totally different when I cook it in the kitchen and give it to you. It's like, here sir, enjoy this. No, you are more connected. You're more patient. You're more observant. You're seeing what's happening. And I got on my social media a lot of people calling me and saying, Tarek, I went and I got a piece of Australian meat from wherever, and I cooked it and it's not performing as you did. The answer, tell me exactly what you did. I did 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you're killing it. You're killing it, because in the Middle East we cook our meat to well done. You don't want that.
It might still move. You got to be careful.
No. Right. When see people associate their well done with blood. Meat, guys, has no blood whatsoever. Meat, after you slaughter the meat, there is no blood. What you see, that's a myoglobin. Blood is hemoglobin. That's what runs in the veins. All right. When we slaughter and we hang the meat, all the blood gets down. So you're not trying blood at all. It's not. And according to the Islamic Sharia, we're not allowed to eat blood. But this is not blood. When you squeeze an orange juice, what color will it be?
Orange.
Why?
Because it's not orange.
Exactly, that's what inside. Right. When you squeeze a meat and you get the juice because of the iron, it will be reddish. But that's not blood.
Got you. Absolutely.
Yes. So I don't think, as I said, it's changing. It's changing how people see food, how people live.
It's the education that's important.
Exactly.
That's part of that. And if you're a little bit squeamish and you're not a vampire, we apologise for that bit, but we're going to go back into a different area, which is, we've got lockdown, we've still got lockdown, it might be with us for a little while. How do you see the industry being in 5 to 10 years, another big question, 5 to 10 years time? The reason I say it is because we see the social distancing in here. This is a restaurant set up really with a distance, but maybe little tables together. Do you think that we're going to see the death of restaurants, or do you think we're going to see more of dark kitchens? Where do you see the industry being in the future from your experience?
I think as human beings, we are very creative, and we will find a way to overcome this dilemma. Because I think Mrs. Corona is going to stay with us for a while. It's not going to be gone. If you notice nowadays, supermarkets are becoming really big. People start to cook more at home. There will be a link between chefs and between audience where they can do lots of cooking online. Lots of restaurants now start turning their activities from people just coming to sending or delivering their food, their favorite dishes to homes. I don't think we'll stop. I don't think. I think the more and the longer the corona stays, the more creative we will get to find a way to overcome that. And as a human, instead of doing force eating, we can do a little bit more. Reduce the chairs, have the social media, reduce the time of sitting so other people will come. We will find a way. We will find a way.
But it's also going to mean that if that's the case, more people are going to cook at home. That really does raise the importance of a chef's on social media and in the community to be able to show people these incredible dishes and they'll have a better relationship with themselves and celebrity chefs like yourself. That's kind of good.
Of course. And as I said, you will find people connecting with you on social media and asking. That's actually can also be a new, it's not really a new thing, but it's finding that connection between customer and between people and the chefs online, classes online, cooking online. With Meat and Livestock Radio, we do immersion chefs, and I did one in Beirut last week, Beirut, Qatar, Jordan, where we get 20 to 30 chefs at their location. And we do a Zoom meeting where we all cook together.
Wow.
We send the picture, we taste the food, and we send our expression, and we exchange dishes. Like tomorrow I'll do the same dish that Steven cooked, for example. And I will tell him, oh, I had this and this and this, and he will tell me, oh, I did yours, and it was so.
A master chef masterclass.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So.
I love it. So we're short on time. I want to make sure that we get as much out of you as possible. So I'm going to throw in one last question. And it's really, in fact, what we can do, now I'm thinking about it, do you have any questions from the room I would like to share with our Master Chef Tariq? We're all very shy, you see. We have a microphone there, by the way, if anybody wants to stick your hand up or go over to that microphone.
Hey guys, I need some questions. Come and ask questions. Move.
He's very expensive. If you don't get him now, it'll cost you a fortune. So feel free to.
Please go right there.
Just stand up. No, right there. You've got the standing mic. Move forward, forward a bit, left a bit. That's the one. Before you say anything, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then please ask the question.
My name is Erdem Sayed. I'm working for Global Supply, based in Dubai. Recently, we have an office in Turkey. I'm the one who's managing the office in Turkey. I would like to ask Tarek, during the pandemic, do you have any difficulty to get the same quality of the product you are receiving before as an ingredient, like meat, like chicken or whatever, shrimp?
No, I'm not getting any problems getting the same product because, as I said, people are still working, people are still producing. Maybe the amount has been a little bit reduced since cargo and shipping and stuff. It's a little bit smaller, but it's there and you can get it. And if you use local farmer and local products, I don't think you will have any problem with that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And on the back of that, I'd actually like to give personally a round of applause to everybody involved in the catering and supply industry, because as soon as we went into lockdown, I filled my garage full of Maggi noodles. I thought we wouldn't get access to any food anymore, but it's been fantastic to know that we're going to be in very good hands. Any more questions before I ask my final question to Chef Tariq?
Sam Guild, where's Sam? He can ask a question. Come on, Sam.
He's all shy of that. He's got a direct line to you, I think. If you'd like to ask Sam, you're very welcome to. No, he's going to catch you later on. My question is this, just to kind of put the whole thing to rest. And I find it fascinating about your solution to, in fact it goes full circle, your solution to how people should be eating during a pandemic is to get the same sort of meal size that they would have got if you were flying a plane as a pilot, and you get this little tray with a little bit of that and a little bit of that's how people should be eating. So with you, you've done so many different things. I mean, I think it's, when you've done a lot of different things and moved out of your lane and moved into a different lane, I like to call it a portfolio lifestyle. You've covered a lot of different things in your career. What is left? What can you see that you haven't done yet, that you've always had an ambition? Is there anything crazy like cooking on the moon or on Mars or something that would have been your next direction?
I love your questions. By the way, I love your voice, man.
Thank you.
It's really nice. You feel like there is power.
Oh, good.
And timbrels.
Well,
It's a nice mix.
So these guys are going to start paying me more money, then it's even better. Let's have it
Hey guys, you should. You really should.
I'm joking. I'm joking. But as we were saying, what's left for Chef Tariq? What do you want to do?
I'm a master chef. I would like to have my first Michelin star. I'm gonna work for it because master chef is really you're up there, but there is none. Michelin stars, Arab chefs from Arab background in the world. So I would like to be the first.
Why?
Because there is a lot of, in the old days, to be certified, you have to be able to add certain ingredients to your food, which in Arab world we're not using.
Yep.
So now things start really to change because the Arab world became more influential, have a bigger size influence in the world. So I would like to really do that, and this is something for myself. I would like to do some acting.
Wow.
Has nothing to do with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But
would you play a chef? Or would you, what character, what movie role would you look at and say, that's the one that was good for me? Would you be one of the Avengers?
No, I would be a really rough, tough guy.
I can see it.
I want this.
Knocking down doors, taking the money and saying, don't do it again. Fantastic. I'm scared as we talk. It's been a pleasure spending quality time with you. And I love the fact you've been so open and you've enlightened us and learned so much all about the food industry. Ladies and gents, please put your hands together for the incredible Chef Tariq Ibrahim.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So with that, we're going to have some more chefs coming on throughout the entire day on Chef Talks. Please feel free to pop back, have a look around the entire area as well. I would always advise, I want to get a selfie with you before you disappear, just to prove I was talking to you, for anybody who didn't catch it. But you're going to be around getting interviewed by the press as well. And if anybody wants to ask you any specific questions, but we're too embarrassed to do it in front of an audience, we can catch you there.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Goes on. Is it going on? Fantastic, nice and live. Nice to see you, ladies and gentlemen. We are off in a little corner of the world which is different from a lot of what's going on inside Gulfood, but I like to think we're like in an executive lounge, very exclusive, like when you go to the airport and people are pressed up against the window watching all the people drinking and enjoying the hospitality that nobody else can get in. That's where we are right now. You're not convinced, are you? Well, let's just stick with that anyway. In here, my name's Dave Crane, by the way, it's great to see you in here. This is our very own special Chef Talks. We talk to the most innovative and most creative and most famous chefs on the planet. And that's what we're going to be doing for the next 4 days. So it's a great opportunity for you to connect with them, also to find out what makes them tick. And to my best of my abilities, I'll be asking some questions which hopefully will be mirroring what you'll be thinking at the same time. So our next chef here on Chef Talks is an expert who's been in Dubai for some time, and he's been responsible for doing a lot of things that many people can't do because he's got a new way of doing it. And you're intrigued to find out what I'm talking about, and he probably is as well. He's thinking, what's he talking about? What's Dave going on about? We're going to find out in a moment. Please put your hands together as we invite on, from Biddy Bondi, Mr. Shane Bourne. You can take your mask off. I've been vaccinated. Have you been? I won't kiss you then. All right. There you go. Need your mic about there? It should be switched on. Just check. Yeah. Just press that button in the front. Oh, it's on. It is on. We'll just switch it on there. There you go. Got it nice and cool.
Alright, can you hear me?
Perfect. So what you're saying, you weren't old enough to get vaccinated. That's a bit of a shame.
Apparently you have to meet some sort of criteria to get there, and I'm not in that bracket yet.
Wow, okay, well I'm sure that won't come back to bite anyway. But let's not talk about that particular subject, at least at this moment in time. Now here's the thing about Shane. First of all, you're the executive chef of Biddy Bondi. For anybody who doesn't know that particular venue, if you'd like to describe what they would get when they get there?
The best way to describe Biddy Bondi is a kind of old school Australian sports bar. It's based in the Palm, very much an outdoor terrace, Saturday afternoon place to go for something to eat, to drink. We're most well known for our chicken palmies, a staple in Australia. If we didn't serve it, I don't think anyone would come visit us anyway.
Now we talked about Australia with Chef Tarek earlier, and one of the things I've got to say is if you don't know how much Australians and sport and food and partying mix together, they are all from the same thing, aren't they? So when you talk about a venue like this, it's not just by accident, it's in the blood.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that relates to quite a few of the different cultures that are based in Dubai, the English, the South Africans, the Kiwis, the Australians, where all of those things kind of intertwine. So a place like Biddy Bondi is a perfect melting and meeting point for everyone to go and enjoy what they enjoy most.
Now one of the things, Shane, about you is you position yourself as a completely, well, let me just say, confessions of a self-taught chef. Now, that's a lot to pack in with the fact that you're self-taught. Does that mean that you used to, take McDonald's home and open it up and say, I wonder how they do this? How did you first get around to being able to find out you're very good at cooking and then take it to this level?
I was lucky enough that I learned it from my mother, a good chef in her own right. She kind of instilled some belief in my brother and I when we were little that it was fun to be in the kitchen. Kind of kicked along from there. And just the kind of the way life worked out, I never ended up going to culinary school, so I had to learn quite a lot on my own. I learned a lot from a bunch of my different mentors. And it's like for me, I'm quite proud of the fact that I managed to get to where I am and not going the traditional route.
Fantastic. Now, does that mean, because we're going to be talking about that specific thing, about the interest in cooking at home to coronavirus and lockdown, we'll go to that area in a moment, but how did you find, as a chef, certainly here at Chef Talks, at Gulfood, do you think there's a certain amount of snobbery as to where you were educated, who you learned with? Because you kind of bypassed that. Because when people turn to you and say, so who did you study under? And they say, my mum, it's not quite the same effect, but obviously you get around. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a bit of snobbery is maybe not quite the right word. There's a little bit of ego involved about which cordon bleu school you went to, where you grew up, where you worked in how many restaurants, rosettes and Michelin stars, what chefs you trained under. But I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to put your money where your mouth is. I can say, okay, cool, I didn't go to any of those, but I can put something on the table next to one of them. You leave it at that. But at the end of the day, I'll always go back to, as I said, my foundation is through my mother, and who better to learn from your love of food, the thing that you want to do with your life, that person who brought you into this world, who loves you the most, and what she's going to teach you to the best of their ability with absolutely nothing to gain out of it.
Well, I'd like to look at and I love that you say that about it, because my mum taught, I remember when I wanted to turn vegetarian many years ago, I said to my mum, right mum, I've decided I don't want to eat any meat anymore. So what she would do to encourage me, she'd cook the normal dish and leave a hole where the meat used to be. And she said, help yourself, I cook and you eat, and if you don't want that, then tough. So in the end I just went, you know what, just give me a burger, I'm fine, so I gave up on that. So here's what I want to look at, because I've been to South Africa. I love the fact that food is there's so many different types of food. It's so much part of the culture. There's lots of different things happening. But it's very live cooking, barbecues, the whole social thing is such a large part of that. The braise and everything. Is that your superpower? Do you bring this to Dubai in what you're doing?
I think one of the greatest parts of being South African, and most stuff is will agree with that, is that you come from such a unique place in that it was at the very southern tip of the world, and the entire world ended up using it as a trading post. So you've got all of Asia coming through, most of Europe, and then Africa itself. Quite a bit then came through from the Americas later on. But you've got all the different flavor profiles, but it all stems from back in the day of man-made fire. Didn't have your stoves and all of that. So that tradition's kind of lived along, where cooking with the elements out in the open, celebrating what you eat if it's come from a local farm, that's very much part of the way of life. I've also been lucky enough, I've traveled quite extensively with my family growing up, that all of that kind of came to one place, and I think that's maybe what I would say where my greatest strengths will come from, is that I've been exposed to so much and learned so much from different places. I can kind of bring it all into one place and express my own view of how I feel about food.
Now clearly at Bidi Bondi, that was working well. When you're in a great location, the sports themes, certainly in Dubai, and the idea of meeting your mates and having a party and eating great food, that's a perfect solution to fill a restaurant in Dubai until lockdown. Now that is the game changer, because that really means that you've got to go back to the drawing board and see what works, what doesn't work, and what can we do to entice people back to a social environment style restaurant when the social has been kind of removed. What happened?
Well, I mean, first off, when everything kind of kicked off last year, I think it was in March, everything was closed immediately. We went into full lockdown. You had to turn around and take stock of what can we do, where do we sit, how many staff do we have to provide for, what do we have in the bank, how can we manage it, etc., etc. And the logical step, which most places did, was going into delivery. But if you're not done delivering before, there's a whole bunch of different parts that come into it. The biggest problem is setting your food up, how you present it, how you send it up, so that if it takes 30 or 40 minutes to get to a customer, it doesn't get there, it's a soggy mess, it's falling all over the place. So we had to go into thinking quite quickly. I mean, we managed to activate that in about 24 hours, just so we could get some turnover and just so we could look after our staff. And one of the things I'm most proud about how we got through was that we managed to keep all of our staff. We managed to rotate through on days of unpaid leave, etc., etc., but everyone at the end of the day had a job. And then when we eventually were allowed to open back up with the different rules in place, this said table space and sanitization with the amount of time you can have there, what type of entertainment. Your greatest ally, I think, in the whole market is what kind of value proposition can you bring to the table. At the moment, people are on reduced salaries, but they were so excited to be out in the open, so excited to be able to go see their friends, maybe their family, whether it may not be a big group, but you get to feel that human connection again. You've got to make it worth their while. So that's where we went back to the drawing board. How do we add value? What kind of packages can we put together? Is there a way we can really look at our costing, kind of keep our product the same as it is, but maybe bring the pricing down, just to kind of flow with what's happening in the market and the rest of the world.
So with that, because when I first arrived in Dubai, probably before you were born, about 30 years or so ago, I was in a sports bar, Champions, in the Marriott Hotel in Deer, which I don't think exists anymore. But I do know that the relationship with a sports bar and its clientele who go there every time to watch the big screens to see and live and breathe the sporting is so important. When you get a situation like we've been through, and in many ways we are right now, you are not just a sporting bar, you are the home to single men, to single women, to people who come together for that family environment, and that's a big challenge. How did you go about reproducing that in a safe way for people to come back and experience that social fabric again?
Well, I mean, I think we were in a very lucky position that the day we opened our doors, all those people that you're talking about, your regular customers, so as you would call it, your extended family, those loyal to you, were the first people at the tables. They were straight back in the door, and it was up to us to make sure that it was that safe environment, that the table space was kept, everyone's behaving, temperature checks, etc., etc. And we made sure that everyone knew there was no nonsense. If you didn't follow the rules, you were out the door. Security was going to deal with you. And I think we managed to make it a safe environment so that all those people were more than happy to return and come back. And then obviously as the sports has slowly picked up and we got through Christmas and New Year's and all of that, people were starting to feel a bit more comfortable. And we're lucky that it's been an institution, it's been around for a long time. That loyal following has paid us back in kind.
Because that's the challenge when you're working in an environment where it's all about your inhibitions coming down. When the inhibitions come down, often the masks float and people get closer, and you've got to be everyone's parent in some ways and say no, and spoil the fun a little bit. But that's part of the new world we're in, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with that on a constant basis. It's really hard to say something, okay, cool, you're allowed to go out the house, you're allowed to go to a pub, you're allowed to go here, you're allowed to go there. But then when they get there, like, yeah, but no fun. You're not allowed to do that. No, sit down and get a few drinks in there, and they get talking to their friends, a few jokes being told, a little bit of music playing, they start dancing. No, sit down. You go through circles, but eventually you'll get through to someone and you say to them, guys, like, look, if you're going to do that, you're going to behave like that, we're going to be closed down tomorrow, our staff are going to be without jobs. Just behave yourselves, and then kind of something clicks and they clock in and they start behaving themselves, which is quite a nice part about it. Because also they don't want to wake up tomorrow and not be able to go down to their favorite pub for a coffee.
Exactly, so it makes perfect sense. Now what I want to do is look at the different side of what you do, because with everybody kind of, and Dubai's better than most places around the world, more people are being vaccinated here than almost any other country, with exception of maybe Israel. So what we've got is people being able to go out and socially connect, as long as it's within reason. But certainly around the world, people are cooking at home more, and they're learning to cater for themselves more. Now that goes down the roots of where you started, of course, learning from your mom and doing home cooking. What would your advice be for people who are going down that route? What would you say is the way we should do it, without burning the house down first?
Well, you're always going to burn something at some point. Don't worry, the professionals still do it as well. But no, I think my biggest bit of advice would be, don't be scared. If you mess it up, you start again and you go over again. But it's been a unique situation where there's so many people who would always dine out, or they would get meal plans done, or they would have this, etc., etc., etc. But they got to a point where they were at home for extended periods of time. Maybe they were on unpaid leave, maybe they weren't working, they were working different hours, and cooking became a thing in their lives. Whether they were good at it already, or they had no idea what they're doing, it's opened that up where people started to think a bit more about what they're eating, looking after themselves a bit more in that regard, and actually just expressing themselves in the kitchen, maybe getting over some fears and anxiety of cooking. My biggest advice is, don't be scared. Explore what you want to do. If you mess it up, it's not the end of the world. Okay, cool, you might be having toast that night, but it is what it is. But explore, find out. There's only one way to learn something new, and that is to go look for it.
Well, with that, there comes the social aspect of cooking. versus a reason for you doing it for yourself. I mean, you're looking for your family, maybe a handful of friends, if you're allowed to, coming round. But with that whole experience of what it's like to cook from home for yourself, how do you see the restaurant industry being, how do you think it's going to develop and evolve with the changing face of the consumer?
There's
no pressure, easy question.
It's all right,
There's nobody here who's going to pick you up in it, but where do you see it?
I think it's going to go back to what it should have been, what it's always been, but kind of pushes away from it, where so many people get deprived of going out, being an experience. Where, okay, cool, I booked dinner here tonight, I'm so excited that you walk in the door, you get greeted, okay, this is your table, we've got these specials, and you finish and you walk out of it and you're just happy. You get the bill, like, oh, that's a bit expensive, but I don't even care, I had a fantastic time, I had an experience. And that's where the market's going to go. At the end of the day, if you want to create something that's going to be sustainable, you've got to give something to your customers. It's no longer just about the food. Of course, the food is an important part. Your entire offering, the service, whether the chef comes to the table and talks to you, whether the matron is exceptional on the ball, your waiter goes, no, I like this one. And at the end of the day, you're like, man, that was cool. It was an experience. It's got to go back to those basic roots. Because one, your spending power is lower, people have taken a financial hit over time. If they're going to go out and pay for something, it's got to be worthwhile. If you're not offering them that, then you may as well stop what you're doing, because it's going to end badly for you, because people are not going to do that. They're going to find the experience. I think that's the way the market's going to go.
I agree with you completely, because that's kind of something that people took for granted, and people are going to walk in, and it's really going to be down to the staff, it's down to the cleanliness, it's down to a lot of things, the atmosphere in a socially distanced environment. So it's a lot for a restaurant to take on. Now, I want to move to something that I'm so excited about. On Wednesday, I'm going to be meeting yourself with a couple of your colleagues, and that's strange to say when you've got chefs from different restaurants. Because normally, I don't know if I'm right about this, because we've got some chefs in the room, but sometimes there's a bit of an ego thing. But you are part of what is like the Dubai Avengers of chefs. Can you explain what that means for anybody who doesn't know and isn't in it yet, but this is meant to talk to?
Yeah, last year, obviously, lockdown came around. Things were a bit tough. People were looking for things to do, help, etc., etc. One of the things kind of a brainchild of mine and another chef called James Knight Pacheco, who we'll be talking to you about, we just had this idea of starting the Dubai Chefs Collective. And essentially what it is a building block for chefs to actually get to know one another, to help each other, share ideas, share recipes, kind of check any egos, oh, I'm better than you, da 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 da. No, it's a place to build a community for the chefs to be safe, to get ideas, to ask questions. And so far it's been very well received, but it's also quite cool because we want to present to the customers, the general public, who the people are that are actually cooking their food. It's all very well going to this restaurant and that restaurant, but if you've got a name and a face and a bit of a backstory and a bit of an idea who the chef is, it makes that experience better. Going back to what I was saying about the experience. So we're building this community slowly and surely, and we want to get to a point where most of the chefs in Dubai are talking to each other and building up a community to build up the community and quite challenge each other in a healthy, constructive way to make everything better.
That makes perfect sense, because the isolation that people feel where they're running their own business is like the rest of the world is stopped. You need, especially in a world where you're running a restaurant, you need to get intel about best practices, because maybe more so than ever before, you're all in it together. It's you versus delivery, you versus people cooking at home. Not to stop that, but you want people to come out for the dining experience. And so any insights you have with that must be very useful.
And I mean, one of the ways I've seen, we've got a WhatsApp group which we're all in, and we're all shooting messages around, whether it's banter or whatever. One of the things I found out the most is that with all the travel restrictions, the exporting restrictions, everything happening, stock rotation from our suppliers has been an issue. One place will have stock at this one week, next week they won't have it. But every time someone's been short in something or can't find something, they'll send it into the group and they have 10 people responding, call this person, call this person, call this person. So it's a small example, but it's a clear one of how it's benefited us through a time that was difficult, but to the extent of helping the market as well, because then you're helping out another supplier, you're getting some cash flow going through there, you making sure that restaurant, that delivery company, etc., is able to put what they need on the table. They're not taking items off the menu because they can't find the source. It just keeps the whole circle rolling.
That's a great thing to have, and it's certainly, I don't know if that kind of thing would have happened without the lockdown and without the need for people to reach out and connect to each other.
And I mean, as I said, maybe it wouldn't have happened without the lockdown, but as I said, as an outsider, I was always, as I said, coming up, I didn't go through the traditional channels, I wasn't in some of the restaurants, etc., etc. I managed to meet quite a few of the chefs who are now part of the group last year here at Gulfood, which is quite cool that that's what this place does. And I wanted to find a way in. I wanted to find a way, and I also wanted to find a way in for all the other people that didn't have a way in. And that's kind of lockdown, I think, probably pushing happening faster, sooner, quicker, better, etc. But it was a very eye-opening thing for me, because you do have that thought process of, oh, this is my restaurant, it's better than yours. The competition says I'm not sharing this with you, and it's actually the opposite.
That's great to know. By the way, if you just come in, welcome to our special Chef Talks. We're going all the way through to about 3:30 over the next 4 days and talking to some of the best and most interesting chefs on the planet, and certainly our stars here in Dubai. We're going to take an opportunity for you, by the way, if you have a question that you'd like to share with Shane Bourne, as we worked out. He's executive chef of Bidi Bondi, based in Dubai. We have a microphone just over here. If you'd like to put your hand up and walk over there and ask a question, we have had it sanitized. So we're very, very careful about every element of what we're doing here. If you'd like to ask a question of Shane, that'd be fantastic. If not, he will be around, so you can catch up with him. And so far, everyone's just staring at us, so they must be loving the way that we're doing it from here. They don't want to contribute, and they're getting enough information via social media, which is a good thing.
They seem to be managing all right.
There we go. So next thing I want to ask you is, where do you see all this going? Where do you see the whole restaurant business being in 5 to 10 years? Because the first year of lockdown was really like, let's see what sticks. But a year later, it's really a case of, this is kind of the way that normal is. I apologize for the noises, but we've got a car park next door. No, sorry. But do you think that what we have now, I think we've got a motor racing circuit, maybe that's what it is. Do you think it's going to evolve still, and if so, in which direction?
Well, I think I always go back to what my grandmother once told me. She said, when times are good, people eat and drink. When times are bad, they eat and drink more.
Right.
So it will progress a bit. Things will change. There's no doubt about it. I think still people are going to look at their experience once again. They want to get the bang for their buck. They want to do that. But people are definitely going to go from isolation to accepting the fact that they can go back out in public and enjoying it more and not taking it for granted. And when you get to that point where you're actually truly looking at an experience that's not, I can do this every day, you're going to get something special. You're going to get some restaurants coming. You're going to get a few places that are just going to be like, wow, they've taken it up a notch. They're offering something that is such an experience. It's so special. You can look at guys like Rene Redzepi, some of the chefs around the world, who just inspire everyone else, but they've taken it from not being about food anymore. It's about from where the food comes from, how you eat it, how you taste it, the sights, the sounds, all of the above. And all of that's going to become more focused as people will look for more. As I said, because before going to the pub, going to a restaurant, going out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was a normal thing, and then going to like, okay, cool, I've been locked in my apartment for 6 months. When they go out, they're going to enjoy going to the pub so much more. They're going to enjoy doing that, and that's going to start pushing the chefs, the hospitality industry to do better and better and better, and create unique experiences that people will always want to remember and make memories.
Fantastic. One final question, because we want to be able to make sure that we do the best with you that we can in Dubai. But if you're an expat, how long have you been in Dubai, first of all?
22 years.
22 years, alright, so I've been here about the same. You came up when you were born, Ben, clearly. Okay, so I've been here for about 30 odd years. Now the question for anybody who's an expat, as much as we love being in Dubai, is at some point you want to take what you know and go back home with it. Is that a temptation for you to go back to South Africa with the knowledge you have about running bars, running restaurants, and set up your own brand over there, or maybe a Biddy Bondi back home?
It's a bit of a tough question for me.
Pretend the boss isn't watching.
No, it's I've been fortunate enough that while I've been an expat, my entire family's been here, so I don't have much of an allure to kind of return. I don't have that pull to go back. But I don't know how much you guys know about South Africa, but the state of affairs there, let's just say, aren't fantastic. Through many different reasons, I wouldn't look at building a future. I'm fortunate enough that my partner, she's got an American passport, and I think those are kind of the passports we'll look at and take what I've learned from here there. But as I can see it, I wouldn't really go back to South Africa.
Well, that's good for us here in Dubai. We look forward to enjoying many more of your wonderfully cooked dishes and popping in and enjoying the atmosphere here in Biddy Bondi. Ladies and gents, please put your hands together. Our executive chef, Mr. Shane Bourne. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate it. Fantastic. We're going to have chefs all the way through sharing their ideas, sharing their foods, sharing their vision up until 3:30. As mentioned before, please feel free to connect with our chefs, get selfies, see if you can get invited back to their restaurant for an experience, which would be great as well. Next on this stage, I'm going to be handing the mantle over to William Skidmore, who's going to be chatting to Heather Mills, the founder of V-Bites. So don't go anywhere. Look after your seats. There's not many of them, but you want to make sure that that is yours. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Can you hear me, mother? 1, 2. Oh, it's on. Thank you so much. Nice to see you, by the way. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I was actually just observing and making incredible questions for you. And now that's ready, I'll be sharing them with you as we bring in our next guest. Is everybody okay? Everybody happy? Good, wonderful. How's the event been for you so far? Wow, it's more like a seance than a conversation, really, isn't it? So you can speak back to me, even with social distancing. You can't spit, well, you probably can if you try really hard. But has it been okay for you? You can give me a round of applause, let me know it's been good by clapping. That's good. There you go. You have to find new ways of doing it. Maybe even doing, you know, when you go to an airport and they've got those guys who used to have those table tennis bats that were waving in the planes like that. Maybe we should do semaphore, I think it's called, to let us know whether it's good or bad or whatever. All right then, our final guest today, by the way, I've been very excited to have a chat with this guy because the whole world has altered dramatically. You might have noticed unless you've been asleep for the last year. And as a result of that, to find an event like this happening in Dubai is really not only spectacular, but it's kind of like heralding the way that things will be in the future. So for every guest we've been having in here, if you've been here watching us discussing things, I've always thrown in a question about what happens to the catering industry and the restaurants and food and dealing with what happens with customers in the future. And everyone's got a different spin on it. Because ultimately, if you're in the restaurant business, you want people to go into a restaurant. But that might not be the only solution. So our next guest is able to shed some light on that and talk about how the disruption in the digital world and in the real world can come together and actually work together very well. So I'd like to put your hands together as we bring in a gentleman responsible for launching 2 incredible brunch events. Let's do DXB, and Mr. and Mrs. Brunch is a co-founder and CEO of those companies. Put your hands together with Mr. Adrian John. I'm so glad you've got a bottle of water because I tried to. Somebody's been stealing our bottles of water from behind. I'll find you. I can tell it's you because you've got a bottle of water about that size, and that's. Anyway, moving on. How are you?
Very good, thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thanks for the intro.
Is that about right? You're a bit of a legend now in your industry.
How about that? Big boots to fill, but I guess it's not just myself. I have to say that first. We are a partnership. There's two of us, Mr. and Mrs. Brunch. Obviously, she is the better looking one.
Is that your wife you're talking about?
It is, yeah.
Is she called Mrs. Brunch or Mrs. John?
She's called Mrs. Melton, actually. She's kept her actual first name.
Okay.
Talk about that one.
Because there's only you and Elton John who've got the names the same with a surname. And anyway. Okay.
Okay. Well, yes.
Moving on.
So she's the better half. She's the one that you'd often see in front of the camera. I'm behind the camera. She's the face, and I'm, I guess, the voice. I guess we started off as most good stories do. It was a bit of a love story. So we met here 8 years ago at a brunch, and we just used to go out on date nights, like every single night of the week, pretty much. So we got a reputation for going out eating and drinking a lot and enjoying the social media side of things. And we found a lot of these places in Dubai were not really telling their stories very well, and we wouldn't be able to find out the offers that the restaurants had. So we just started documenting.
Can I just check? So you're talking specifically about the brunch hopping style restaurants, not the cordon bleu chef style restaurants, or a mixture?
A mixture of both. So this is so anything from big brands that were doing buffets, as they like to call them, or dinner deals. Every single restaurant was doing some sort of offer that they just weren't telling their audience about, and we wouldn't be able to find out about them. Because we like to go out so much, we were finding all of these deals and then just documenting them for everyone to see. And then before, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, we coined the nickname Mr. and Mrs. Timeout, which is obviously taken and copyrighted by the well-known publication.
Yeah, we soon.
It pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
So Mr. and Mrs. Brunch was kind of born then. And it just started off as a blog and a website, and then it grew into an Instagram page. And then a couple of years later, that naturally evolved into Mr. and Mrs. Brunch, or Let's Brunch, the app.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So with that, it's all documenting what elements of what makes Dubai's food and hospitality industry. What is it you look for when you mention something? And if you go to a place and you think it's a bit rubbish, would you place it on your guide?
Yeah, so the idea of it is that it's a completely all-encompassing, warts and all, 100% objective outlook or mirror of what's out there in the industry. There is no point in us saying that we're an objective guide to eating, drinking and brunching in Dubai if we go and we say that everything's fantastic and everything's 5-star, which it isn't. If it's terrible, we'll say it's terrible. Mr. and Mrs. Brunch is, it's our social media platform, and I really don't like the word influencer because that's not what we are. We don't tend to go and take nice pictures and say that everything's great, but I guess we do influence people's behaviour. And so we did garner, I think at last count, 60,000 or so followers on our social media platform. Hotels in the industry started to take notice. So they started to contact us and ask us to come and review their restaurants. When we were going to a brunch, we were looking at things like obviously the food, entertainment, the drinks, the service, all encompassing, and we'll wrap it up into what used to be a really long War and Peace style review. But thankfully nowadays people have obviously a lot quicker appetites and short attention spans, so it's now in something called a brunch in a minute. So we'll wrap up a brunch overview in a minute for you. So if you want to go to your lumber, we'll show you what it's like in a minute.
Fantastic. I'll just give us an image of, when you got these spaghetti westerns or these cowboy films, and then the baddie comes into town and everyone shuts all the shutters and they shut the saloon and say, quick, hide! And people go underneath the horse and all like that. When you walk into a restaurant, they recognise you and your missus. Do they say, they're here, hide everything, just, hello, how are you? Do you get that kind of treatment?
I'd like to say it doesn't happen.
However,
yeah, we can't. I mean, for example, we can't be called, so you can't pay us to come and give anyone a nice review.
Right.
Again, we have to be completely objective. We've had this social media platform for 8 years now, and people have grown with us because they trust what we say. So if all of a sudden, as you say, we start to say that everything's fantastic and it's the best meal I've ever had in my life, and those chips are superb and brilliant, and then with the nice little product placement and things like that, people will start to distrust us very quickly. yeah, we do get recognised. Obviously, I'm a 6'2" black lad, and if you see my missus, she's stunning blonde. So when she walks in and when we walk in, it's we're not, you can't blend into most situations. We can tell when stuff's contrived and when stuff is put on, but we can see through that, and we hope that our audience will be able to see through that.
So I'm fascinated. I've got to let the ball drop on this, because Dubai is an amazing attitude. I remember years ago, and I was very brief about it, I met a famous British pop star, and I wanted to interview her, and she got really funny that I might do a paparazzi on her. So she didn't want that to happen. We met socially, and she got really funny about it. And I tried to explain to her that in Dubai, you don't do that. In Dubai, everyone does best reviews of everybody, but you're saying that you give straight reviews. Did you get pushback? Did you get some problems of anybody? I must know.
So yeah, good question. So within reason, so this is how we actually started, and we'll talk about the app side of things in a minute. So one of our first accounts or reviews was, going to name and shame? I'm going to name and shame. It was channels at the media retire.
Right.
And it was, let's say, it wasn't a glowing review, let's just say that. So we just thought we'd do a blog thing, no one really cares about what we're putting out there. We put out this review of channels, and the manager at the time contacted us and said, "See what you've written about a restaurant, would you mind taking it down, please?" And that's when we kind of realised, well, this is actually getting out there and helping people.
It's a big thing.
It was a big thing. So we didn't do it just to slate or bash, and we can't look out these over-sensationalised reviews where people will write something to slander and bash chefs and bash industries and things like that. That's not our intention at all. If anything, it's to give feedback constructively about areas where they can improve in those 4 areas: food, entertainment, drinks, service. Service being the key one. And we obviously heard the chefs earlier talking about we want to bring back the experience side of things. We didn't take the review down, but what they did do is they said that, okay, respect you for not taking that down, and
I bet they did.
Would you like to come and review one of our other outlets so you can see how we do it properly? We give you the opportunity to do that. So we gave them the opportunity to go back and re-review. Obviously, that's what's important for us. We're here to support the restaurant industry and chefs and colleagues, not to bash them and bring them down, because without the restaurant industry, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
But it's really important, because the fact is, if you're not honest and you're not straight, and people don't have a benchmark of the way that you perceive a restaurant to be, then when they go in and you've given it a glowing experience, then they're not going to want to read anything else you say. It's got to be pretty constant on your view of things all the way through, otherwise you've got no credibility.
Exactly. And that's why it's just myself and it's just Lucy. So she's the face, she's in front of the camera. I'm the editorial person.
Balancer.
The scenes. I'm the balancer. You saw her, you definitely, you say you need one. But I always try and play it with a straight bat. We have a real set benchmark. I said I'm not a chef, but I know what a good steak is. I know what a good bottle of red is. I know what a good portion of chips is. I know what the standards are. I know what a 5-star restaurant is. I know what a 3-star. I know what 2-star is, and everything stays the same.
I love listening to another Brit saying about the important things in a restaurant. The chips has to be on it. Obviously, everyone else is going, but for us it's kind of important. So let's look at that whole area, because the review side is part of the digitization side, and right now the lockdown, which is prevalent across the world, Dubai has been open for quite some time, I'm glad to say, and I mean to have an event like this with people out with social distancing, with masks, apart from us on stage for now, is just quite a miracle considering what's going on. What did you think when we went into lockdown? Because first of all, many restaurants closed. Well, exactly, your livelihood disappears. In fact, before I get to that question, how do you make your money then if you're going to restaurants if there's none of the old that going on?
Good question. Again, without giving away our whole entire business model, but we're not reinventing the wheel here. So we've got 2 separate entities. So Mr. and Mrs. Brunch is myself, and it's Lucy. We have our social media accounts. Let's DXB is our business, which we had to create. So Let's DXB is eating, drinking, brunching. We obviously chose DXB because that's where we are. There is future expansion plans rather to other Emirates and then other areas as well, which we can come on to. But that essentially allows businesses to pay for premium advertising spots on Let's XP and either featured spots or redemption. So everyone here is familiar with the app The Entertainer, right? So The Entertainer is an absolute great value proposition for the consumer because you're getting buy one, get one free. So Let's DXB takes an element of that, but we don't just go buy one, get one free. We're a little bit more flexible. We offer discounts to our consumers, everything from 10% up to 50%. First of all, we're free to download and free to use. So restaurants will get access to our audience and they will pay a certain percentage based on every time you redeem. So you would go to X restaurant, use Let's DXB, and then a certain commission would come back to Let's DXB as the business. That's one revenue stream, and then the other revenue stream is again advertising. So,
fantastic. Thank you for being honest about that. I was wondering, but it's fascinating to know because the next question then is what I referred to earlier, which is when we went into lockdown, restaurants were closed and everyone was kind of closed. Obviously that's worrying for you, but how do you feel about the evolution and the answer to the disruption? The digital direction it's gone, and also the practical, half open, half closed restaurant areas, or socially distanced restaurant areas. Were you surprised how quickly Dubai adapted to it?
No, I wasn't surprised. I was really, really happy to see it. For a couple of reasons. We don't really like cooking that much. I mean, we can cook, but
you don't need to.
Well, exactly that. So, but we did when the restaurants closed. Our side of things, all credit goes to all the chefs, the restaurants. All we did was we just reflected what was going on. So there was a couple of different hashtags that we had within the UAE food bloggers collective. And one of them was hashtag support local, and the other one was UAE Restaurants Unite. So they were really, really, really important in terms of making sure that we supported the restaurant industry and supported their new initiatives. So everyone was turning to delivery apps. So there was the mainstream ones, there was the Talabat, Deliveroo's, Zomato, everything like that. There was a couple that really forced those aggregators to slash, if not remove completely, their commissions for restaurants, which we were a big proponent in getting them to do that, putting some pressure on from social media. So we helped them with that. And then just showcasing again what they were doing. So if a restaurant had a brunch or had a delivery, we would film ourselves getting that restaurant delivered to our house. Showcase us eating it at home. So really showcasing what they were doing from a delivery perspective as well. So we also feature that on Let's DXB.
So that means that when it comes to you doing your rounds of restaurants and so on, you've also got to factor in social distancing, maybe whether they use partitions. What do you look now in a new restaurant as opposed to the ones that were maybe active and doing well 12 months ago?
I guess there's a massive one is the no dancing while at brunches, of course, and social distancing. A massive part of brunch is the socialisation aspect, and that's completely taken away. So food, not entertainment anymore, food and beverages and service really come to the fore as they weren't before. We have gone to a few brunches, or lunches as they're now called, and seen that we can eat, we can drink, we can dance, we can enjoy ourselves, all within the social distancing guidelines as well. A really important thing to mention is a lot of people that we were seeing in the past would make 2 or 3 bookings at restaurants and dinners and brunches. We really emphasise people that those restaurant bookings are imperative. Chefs will do all the food preparation based on those numbers as well. And we really hope that people don't go to that extent of making 3 or 4 bookings. Just make your booking. If you're going to cancel, please do let them know as well.
Sure, well that's a major thing because the profit margins are completely different from the level of wastage and so on, I guess, that happened before. So with your ability to go online, you must know about contemporaries, you must know about what's going on in other places. In terms of Dubai, how does Dubai stack up next to other cities or areas? Have you heard about any countries that have managed to get their act together in the same way? as we managed to do here?
I think we're at the forefront of a lot of things. Obviously, harking back to the UK, they're completely shut down. One of our new areas that we're looking into is Thailand, so next BKK, next Singapore is also very similar, and that's going to be the next one after this. But Dubai, honestly, is look at having Gulfood open and in person as well. But I don't think there's any other country in the world that would be able to put on something like this to this extent. So it's a bravo to Dubai and its leadership. But we're definitely out there in front.
It's very exciting to hear that as well, and I feel privileged to have been part of that contribution by eating so much food during lockdown, as you can clearly see, but stop looking, if that's okay with everybody in the audience there. Now, there's a lot of places that have had the challenge of trying to open, and it's not been as successful as maybe other places in more prominent areas. And that leads in many ways to the growth of the dark kitchens, where you don't have a restaurant sitting area, but you do have the chef and the staff creating stuff to put out onto the internet and get out there. How's that been embraced by restaurants, and has it been embraced more by standalone ones, or has it been hotels saying, guys, let's get together and let's start pushing our different outlets through this faster?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, maybe 10 years ago or so, when it first came to Dubai, it was all about the biggest, the boldest, the best, which names can we bring together. And there's still a huge marketplace for that. You know, you call Ramsay's as well, Market Whites and things like that. I think now the restaurant industry is based so much on its actual food stars and its local homegrown chefs. So allowing us and people like myself, who's just a normal consumer, access to those guys, people like Roberto Segura. So you had Shane Baldwin, who's a friend and a chef as well, allowing us access to their kitchens and allowing them to kind of reach out and bring in through their dishes as well, allows them to speak to the audience.
Do you feel that there's a fear of people going out to restaurants in the way that they would before? Because the sanitization in Dubai is going to be better than most places, because it'll be enforced by the government and make sure they're checking everything. But there must be a little bit of hesitancy and a little bit of fear of coming out of the house, which obviously affects you in what you're doing about the popularity, and affects every restaurant that's out there doing stuff as well.
I mean, from everything that I've seen in terms of going out to restaurants, people have got nothing to worry about. Honestly, there's the DTCM are going around and they're fighting people and shutting people down, and obviously mentioned to Shane, if people are misbehaving, they will throw you out. They are not scared to withhold, to uphold the standards that are enforced upon them. So there's definitely no need to be worried.
So then, I mean, first of all, if there's any questions from the floor, if you'd like to ask a question, we've got a microphone over there. Just let me know and indicate with your hand up, because we're kind of coming to the end of this session, and you're very welcome to come and ask any question about anything, about this, ideally. So if anybody wants to ask a question, please feel free. Yes, no? They love your answers, and quite clearly, I think my level of questioning is perfect.
Super.
Or they've fallen asleep and the masks are going in and out and done it with their eyes open. I'm not sure. It's one of the two. So I want to ask you about the future of where this is going, because I read in The Economist that what we perceive as the events industry will never come back again. Now, it's a horrible thing to say, but they're saying for the foreseeable future, you're going to be looking at 1 in 10 events compared to what you used to have. Now, that's kind of scary, because the idea being then, if you don't, I mean, right now, this area here, surprisingly, we've only got 19 chairs. 19 chairs for an area that would have probably had maybe even 70, 80, 100 people. So with that, the economics are really stacked. You've got to have sponsors. You've got to have the willingness for people to pay for an extra ticket price to get there. So with the events industry, they're saying 1 in 10 of the events that we used to have will still be active, but the ones that were sort of like last minute or everyone crammed in like sardines effectively are going to change. How do you see the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry, hotels as well, dealing with the challenges of moving forward? And how do you see the industry in about 5 years? Bearing in mind that you're now the expert and everybody in here on camera, streaming live, is going to hold you to it, Mr. Brudge. No pressure.
Thanks for that. I guess it's just going to be a case of quality always rises to the top, so quality over quantity. There may have been a case where hotels would have launched a brunch just for the sake of it, or launched a new restaurant concept just for the sake of it. Now they have to obviously really think about it, do their research, and make really informed choices about who they partner with, the type of partnerships that they go out with. Probably just a good time to mention that myself and Mrs. Brunch are now officially Mr. and Mrs. Hendricks, the gin suppliers. There are other brands as well, but Hendricks suppliers. Just really tying in with people who are on the ground in the market. People know when they're being sold to, people know when they're being advertised to, and people will switch off. So as long as people have a genuine message and story to tell, people will come back.
And the last question, is there any more questions from the audience? Going. We'll be gone in a minute, you'll miss your chance, but you will get a chance to catch up with Adrian as he's wandering around a little bit later, to catch him for the selfies, and also say, have you got any vouchers for the favourite restaurants, by the way, please? Which I haven't asked you yet, but I will. So, with that in mind, looking at the digitisation, one of the things that I find fascinating is that the dark kitchen concept makes sense. For those of you who don't know what a dark kitchen is, the idea is that you don't have a seated restaurant area, or maybe a partially seated restaurant area, but your kitchen still creates the food that goes online, that people can order to get delivered to their house. And I think that one of the things that's missing from talking to a lot of the celebrity chefs is that because of the way that chefs, have we got any chefs here in this room? So I can say it? Alright, I'll say it. They like to talk a lot about their favourite subject, which is cooking and meat. I think, not me, no, I think that having TV shows in dark kitchens is a massive opportunity for Dubai to brand itself worldwide, and for that chef and that kitchen to really create a great relationship with its vicinity that didn't happen before. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a step forward?
I think that's a great idea. If that's something that we can help with as Mr. and Mrs. Brunch from Next DXP, I don't know what to think about my hosting skills, but obviously Mrs. Brunch is definitely better in front of the camera than I am. But it's definitely something, the more that we can showcase their talents and get it out to their audience, then the better. So it's something that I'm definitely keen to do. Again, like the hashtags that went out with UAE Restaurants Unite and Support Local, everybody's keen to support those businesses and keep them in business, because we all need to eat.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a real pleasure finding out what's happening behind the scenes and in front of the restaurants, because for many of us not going out quite so much, clearly you have been, and you're our eyes and ears to the world, and may that continue for a very long time. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Adrian John. So with that kind of brings this room to a close. I was only me saying it, nobody cares, fine. But we will be open for the next 3 days with lots of incredible chefs. They're going to be coming in and sharing their knowledge, their ideas, and also hopefully telling you about how you can catch up with them and their incredible restaurants all the way through. So we start bright and breezy, normally about 11 o'clock with our first chef talks. Also, you can communicate and connect with the chefs in the lounge areas afterwards, but make sure to take the time to have a look around. This is clearly huge because it is the #1 food festival on the planet for annual food festivals, and also right now it's probably the only event of its size that's open anywhere in the world. So enjoy it, go around, taste as much as you can, and I hope you have an incredible day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. So here we are, that's the end of day 1 for me. As you can see behind me, the whole event is still going. Here we are at Gulfood, and the chefs are busy cooking meat. And I've had a great time talking to some incredible chefs. I'm back tomorrow. I'm going to find out who we're going to be talking to then. Meanwhile, look after yourself, have an amazing day, and make sure you enjoy your food. Bon appetit.
Myoglobin is the juice of the meat.
We can tell them anything. And we're just going to believe us. This is fantastic. So with that, I'd like to bring on our next guest, who's an expert who's come all the way from Berlin. First time in Dubai, but done some incredible stuff. He's got a Michelin star, and now he's going to talk about how he's brought a flavor from the Middle East to Europe, and maybe even bringing it back again. Please put your hands together for Mr. Gal Ben Moshe. In fact, as you grab that, let me just grab a couple of these. See, we've got our own catering called Me in this place, which is fantastic. So there we go. And now I jump on this space with our garden furniture. There we go. No cushions. So you end up with little marks on your butt afterwards, which is cool.
Very comfy.
There you go. I'm glad you enjoy it. How are you?
Good, good. Very excited to be here.
Well, you literally have been in Dubai for how long?
12 minutes. No, I'm joking. 12 hours.
And it's no point me saying what's your impression of Dubai so far, because you've not seen enough of it, but...
Stunning. Stunning. Overwhelming. Amazing. Very excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, jet lag aside, one of the things is I've been here 30 years, and for many people who've been here for a long time, what we love about the way that Dubai is run, the people, the rulers of the country and so on, is the experience that you've had in 12 hours is no different of experience I've had in 30 years. Any snapshot of this region, of Dubai especially, it just makes it feel welcome. And that's one of the great reasons that we've got an event. This is probably the biggest event in the world right now, if not the only event in the world right now, which is kind of special.
I have to admit, it just feels like it. I find it like you drive in from the airport and I thought, oh, this is going to be kind of exciting, but you get so awed by it, you know, and the hospitality of people. I'm cooking a dinner 2 days from now in the Armani Hotel. We go there today, I meet the team, everybody's so nice, everybody's so welcoming. It's amazing, like just an amazing place.
Thank you. I mean, I'd say thank you. It's not me that did it, but
Yeah.
you feel that we've got some representation of what happens in Dubai when you represent. Now, I want to look at a number of different elements of what you do, but I want to set the scene first as well. In Dubai, as we can see, we've thrown everything at making sure that we're up and open. I know that one of the places that impressed me, because you're based in Berlin, is Germany as well. Germany turned around when it went into lockdown and sent a message, which is we will subsidize companies, restaurants, organizations, stay afloat, keep your staff. We don't know what's coming, but we'll make sure that we're underwriting your business. That's an incredible thing. I mean, how did that work for you?
Yeah, we feel very spoiled. I mean, I'm Israeli, so I have a lot of friends in Israel, and we work in Europe, so we're kind of conscious of our neighbors and friends. We're lucky. I can't say it different than that. We're privileged. We get financial aid, quite a lot of it, very fast, no hustle. But I'd rather be open. I'd rather serve customers and do this, you know. This line of work is full of sacrifices. Everybody opened a restaurant, you know, we give up on family, we give up on every important holiday or family occasion to do this. And it's not worthwhile, you know, we want to be open. It's not about the money. Like, thank you very much. I sleep good at night, like unlike my colleagues from other countries. I sleep very good at night, But
I mentioned this earlier when we had another chef being interviewed, but I was incredibly worried that the food supply would stop working worldwide, literally when we're into lockdown. For you guys, as I say you guys collectively, chefs, restaurateurs, people who've got dark kitchens and creating food that gets sent out, without you doing what you're doing, then it ends up with people not being able to eat. But having your own restaurant open when there's a pandemic is a mindset that you have to be able to make a decision on. What was your thoughts about staying open when everyone's saying be shut?
I have to admit that I'm kind of divided on that. So I understand the social responsibility of saying we need to close. I have a 20-seat restaurant. I feel insignificant drop in the ocean. I don't feel like I'm a super spreader and a potential epicenter of the pandemic. I feel like I'm just a person who enjoys cooking for people and having them in my restaurant. And it's kind of heartbreaking, that part. I don't always know the right answer for this. Like I wake up in the morning and say, I understand why we're closed, but I also, we're the first to close and the last to open whenever there's an increase in numbers. And it's a life everybody put 110% into. And we just want it back.
Well, I think we all feel the same way. Now, you also made a business decision, even though there's a subsidy from the government, it wasn't covering enough. So you decided that the work you would do as a restaurant would be to open again, to make sure the staff had jobs, everyone was still doing stuff. That's a tough decision to make. Many organizations just go, you know what, let's just make a decision. We can stay afloat if we lose half our staff. That wasn't what you did.
It's all about the people. You get a Michelin star, you don't get it alone. You get it because your team wants it as much as you do. This is all about our team being our family. And we decided that we're not going to do takeaway for January. And when I transferred the salaries, my heart was broken. I looked at what I'm transferring, my sous chef, my dishwasher. These people cannot live off 1,000 euros in Berlin. And I said, okay, we need to fix that. We need to be open, do takeaways, do whatever it takes. And we're taking basically the profits of the top of that, and we're going to basically divide it as bonuses. I have zero interest in making money off of that. I want my staff to stay safe, and I want my staff to keep occupied. And I'm very privileged to have a very good team right now. And I want to keep it. It's a business that is about people, the people you work with and the people you serve. And keep staying open and doing these deliveries has left us connected with both of them.
Very noble. I think it deserves a round of applause. But I know a lot of restaurateurs feel the same way, and it's a real challenge with that. Now, I asked earlier how many people here are actual chefs. I've had a few more people coming in. Any more chefs in the room? You want to put up your hand and just say? No. And here's why I wanted to ask you that question. How do you get a Michelin star? Because I've never gone down that route, obviously. My wife looks after me, and she's looking after me very well, as you can see. Don't look too closely. How does somebody get a Michelin star? And what's it mean?
Well, I always think that the Michelin star thing is about the uniqueness of the experience, about getting an experience there that you can't get it anywhere else. And I think that's a noble idea. I heard one of your chef talks before, been here for a while, and you talked about the risk that the restaurant industry faces from basically the lockdown, from people cooking more at home, getting more deliveries. And I think the thing is that fine dining or Michelin-starred restaurants, we give people something else. We give people an immersive experience for 2, 3, 4 hours that basically makes them go to a new place, experience something different, that you can't do that at home. And I think this is also the kind of the counter answer to, we can't deliver this to your home.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you specifically about the Michelin star. I mean, I'm sorry to just harp on, I just want to get my head. If you're a master chef, let's take it in Star Wars context. Are you a Jedi, or are you like a Yoda when you become a Michelin star chef?
I think like the first star, I think, is being a Jedi Knight in a way, and getting 3 stars is more the Yoda thing.
Okay.
Because it doesn't change that, really, the fact that you're still working. You're still need to kick ass in the kitchen every single day. And when you get the 3 stars, you can already have your big team and your big franchise and kind of spread out a bit. It's about execution. It's about being perfect every day. We have a lot of guides in Germany and a lot of reviews and a lot of journalists, and I always say that it's the only thing that matters is the star. The only thing that matters is the Michelin guide, because it's the one thing that is a black box that you don't really understand. You don't know how you got it, why you got it, what's the criteria for it. There is no, tick this box, don't tick that box. It doesn't exist. There's no put crystal glasses on the table and a white tablecloth and you're going to get it. You're not. You need to be amazing. And you don't know when they're coming. And it's not some familiar face.
So it's literally arrives by the force. It just comes from out of nowhere, this star. Brilliant. So for anybody who's a Mandalorian fan, by the time you get 3 stars, you can have your own Padawan. And that makes no sense to any geeks who don't follow that. Let's talk about what that means, though. in terms of the food, you must be duty bound to not do what anybody else does. If anything, you're taking a direction to create unique dishes that can't be found anywhere else.
Yeah. So my idea of food is basically what I'm trying to do. Is I come from one of the world's most politically charged regions in the world, but I don't look at it as countries. I happen to have been born in Israel, but I look at it as Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It's all unique. It's all one unique country, one unique region that basically has the same wild herbs, the same historical context of food. And I want to bring these flavors, these ingredients, these techniques, these ideas into modern European fine dining. But not go and try to replicate somebody's ideas, not to go and take some recipes of some Palestinian grandmother and call it mine. I want to bring a new thought, if I see somebody doing something, then I'm trying to say, how do I take this ingredient and treat it differently? It's a new region, I think, for a lot of people. Like people, if I tell you, well, let's call it for a second, Levantine food, you think falafel, you think shawarma, you think street food. And I say, no, there's history to this, there's culture to this, there's hundreds of years of tradition that is worth preserving, that is getting lost. And I say, let's bring it to the world stage. Let's bring it to the fore, create a new language of basically Levantine cuisine that is derived from authenticity, that is basically based only on new ideas.
So when people go into Prism, which is the name of your restaurant,
Yeah.
They would
Happens a lot.
They would expect to they go to prison a lot after going to prison. Okay. When they go in, they would expect to find a different version of what they might have experienced in the Middle East, because you put your own special way of doing it. Is that what they get?
They will get a completely new experience. They'll get the feeling that they are connected to the Middle East. Like there would be the cheese that is jamid, that is basically Jordanian, Palestinian, Lebanese cheese. They will get a kub, which is a thistle that grows in the mountains of Lebanon. They will get khubeza, which is a mallow that grows in the fields in Palestine. But they would get it in a way that is not connected to the way a Palestinian or a Lebanese would cook these things. And they would have it with Israeli, Palestinian, Lebanese wines, and they would have it with Palestinian, Lebanese music in the background, and they will have it in an experience that tells them, yes, there is a context to what we're doing, but we're doing something new.
Well, there must be a question out there when I ask him that, which is, for the last year or so, when the world's been kind of in this pause button, were you still able to get all the ingredients and all the things that you're used to delivering in your restaurants in the same demand as you would have in a normal world?
That's the amazing idea, is the amazing story behind it, is that all these special ingredients that I get have only started coming to Berlin in the last 3 years because of the Syrian immigration. It's like immigration is such an amazing engine of society. It's driven everything in a certain direction. And this Syrian community came into Berlin and they started bringing quality taste of home. And because these ingredients are not based on the idea, I'm going to import it so I can sell it to Syrian restaurants, but I'm going to import it because I'm going to sell it to Syrian grandmothers and to Syrian mothers for them to cook for their families. I don't have a problem in my supply chain. It's not, I would say, if I would want to buy fish from Japan right now, fine dining, 5-star hotels, top-end sushi bars has taken a hit. It's harder to get from that supply chain. My supply chain is authentic. It's for people. So I've not had problem with that.
Fantastic. That's good to know. But now you're in Dubai. We've seen an incredible relationship that's basically come in the last year or so between what used to be a challenge in the Middle East. We've now got a great relationship with Israel and UAE. It must be the case that people are seeing that you're here, a Michelin star chef, and saying, you know what? Can we talk about opening something here in Dubai? Have you been approached yet?
Yeah, and I want to say this is like an amazing opportunity. I'm so privileged by this and so privileged by the idea of being here. This is like exciting on so many different levels because it's not, I don't take it for granted. Like up until a year ago, 6 months ago, I wouldn't be able to come here. And then suddenly, this is much more culturally relevant to what I'm trying to do than to do it in Germany. This is, okay, it's not the same. Again, Levant and the Gulf is a bit different. But there is such a strong influence of that culture here, of this cross-culture influence. It's amazing for me to come here and cook these ingredients and cook this food here. And it's a historical moment for me. It's very overwhelming to look at it like this because, again, up until 6 months ago, I wouldn't cross the border control. Nobody would put me on a plane. And then you come here and you're like, the hospitality has been amazing, amazing. Like everybody's so excited and I'm excited. So.
No, it's beautiful, and it's testament to this region as well. I mean, take Dubai, take the UAE. There must be about 200 different nationalities already based here.
Exactly.
So it's a real melting pot of culture, of belief systems, and everybody just wants to kind of get on, which is different from many places around the world, which is a great slot moving forward. Now, I want to check something with you, because every chef that comes up, I get the best version of the conversations because obviously we're here in front of a wonderful audience and you want to share how good you are at doing this and that. Are you a horrible chef in the kitchen, like a boss to the staff? Do you shout? Or are you a smooth, comfortable, please guys, group hug, socially distanced group hug type? How do you do it?
No, I worked in London in very rough kitchens, in very toxic environments, and when I came to Berlin and opened my own restaurant, I kind of brought that with me, and I was that person for a while, and at one point I realized that I don't have that privilege. The world is changing. You need to treat your staff well. You need to appreciate the people coming to work with you. I said it before, the only way to get a Michelin star, no matter how good a chef you are, is if you're last person on the team, the dishwasher, if every single waiter wants this star as much as you do. And if you don't treat your staff well, they're not going to want it. It's not just a job. And my team comes to work because they believe in what we do. And they choose to work in our restaurant and not in another restaurant. And I'm lucky for that. And every employee that I have knows that I always say, if you have a problem, come to me before it's a problem. Talk. Anything, we can solve anything. And it's helped me become a better chef. And I think you catch more bees with honey.
Well, I love to hear that, because certainly the chefs that we see on television, no names mentioned, there is quite a lot of excitement, shall we say, and sometimes a little bit of, I don't know how we phrase this as an international term, effing and jeffing would be the way I'd say it where I'm from, but I think that's probably a universal term. Yeah. So how hard was it to, because the pressure on getting the food ready for the customer at the same time perfect means that the stress levels are through the roof. It doesn't surprise me. It's like a pressure cooker amongst the staff. Yeah. How do you stop dealing with that?
Ever since my first restaurant in Berlin, I have dealt with doing the impossible. I invite everybody to go on my Instagram account and see a photo of my kitchen. It's probably the smallest Michelin-starred kitchen in Berlin. We do the impossible every night. We send out 450 plates with 3 chefs in the kitchen of very elaborate food at perfect timing, at perfect execution, and we have the star to prove it. And we do it because we don't believe that people are expendable. And I think that in these TV kitchens and TV chefs, the idea is that your employee there is 100 people off the door. I'm going to treat you like shit. Sorry for the language. You're going to walk out or break, and somebody's going to come and fill you. You're not important. And I don't believe that. I believe that every person that comes in and chooses to work for you and work with you, I always say work with me, never work for me. They choose it. And I think that it allows me to basically go and say, hey, we have 24 people on a Saturday night. We need to turn 2 tables to do that. We are the smallest kitchen in Berlin, and we're going to knock it out because we have people I trust.
It's very important. With that, I mean, talking about the TV chefs, when you see this happening, do you ever think, I want my own TV show. I know I can do this my own way. What you must do, every chef must feel it at some point. Here's a question for you. If you had your own TV show called Prism, not Prison, or whatever it would be, what kind of show would it be, and what would you specialize in? What would people see when we go and see your show?
I have a tendency to talk sorry, language again. I have a tendency to talk a lot, so I would really love to go in depth into the region, basically visit winemakers in Lebanon, visit cheesemakers in Palestine, visit sheep growers, see the people, talk to the people that bring us the food, and bring this region to basically to the fore, our regionality. We've done during the lockdown a very important conversation over Zoom, which was a thing, still a thing, about cultural appropriation of basically what is Israeli kitchen and what is Palestinian kitchen, which, again, a plate of hummus is very politically charged where we come from. And we did this very amazing Zoom talks about that topic. And I think this would be an amazing TV show, to have people talk over what brings them together rather than what puts them apart. And I think food in our region has that.
So what we're talking about, you've already worked out the show even before I asked the question, which is that you want to be able to display the
food.
food.
Any producers, we're open for offers.
If there's anybody here from any of the TV stations, he's ready and primed, so you can get him now. So you'd want to go and investigate where the origins of a food come from, how the things are grown, and how they're manufactured before they get to your restaurant.
I'm
just thinking about the budget we're going to be spending on your show, you see. That's
Well, talking to people about it, I think, yeah, and eating a lot. But I think that's, food is people, more than anything, and more than, again, I think that what we do is unique because we put the people first. We put the experience first. And it's not just grabbing a pizza or grabbing a pasta or, food is fuel. In Germany, it's quite a thing that there's quite a lot of people that think of food as a nutritional thing rather than a intellectual experience.
Now, I want to take it back a little bit to how you get to the position that you are now. When you first decided that you were going to become a chef and you started to go down this route, what would you recommend to any budding chefs? So maybe people in this room, for instance, we know there aren't any chefs in here, or there weren't one asked previously, thinking, you know what, I love the idea of this is really exciting. What would be the fastest route to market for them that you'd recommend? Or would they do the same as you, which I don't know what that is yet?
I would say I came from I'm working in gastronomy since I'm 15. And it took me quite a long while to...
As a dishwasher, is that how you start off?
No, even worse, fish factory.
Oh, well.
Do you know what it's like to be in high school and smell like fish? Not popular. No. And the thing is, I think that it took me, I opened my restaurant way too early. I opened my first restaurant when I was 26. And I came from these very eclectic kitchens, very international kitchens, and it took me a while to kind of find my signature, find my style, find my ideas. And I came to this through work, through working for great chefs, that inspired me to basically look at food in a different way, not in a technical way, but in an intellectual way. And I think it's important for people to find their identity, to find what makes them unique. It's not necessarily has to be authentic, but they need to bring themselves to it. I'll give the example, and no offense to anyone. Indian kitchen is a very big thing and a very regional thing in India. And everybody comes from a different area from a different region in India. But for example, Birmingham or London Indian kitchen, something completely different. A person coming from London, from an Indian heritage, cooks Indian food, cooks something completely different. Find yourself, find your uniqueness, find what makes you special, what makes you who you are. I am not doing Israeli kitchen. It would be so pretentious of me to sit 4,000 kilometers away and say, I'm reinventing Israeli kitchen. I'm creating something new that is an Israeli chef working in Germany. I have that uniqueness to my story. Nobody else can do it. And I'm creating a new language. But somebody who's in Israel wants to do the same thing. He does something different. It's a different life story. It's a different signature.
Now, I'm under no illusion about how long it's going to be before you start opening up your first restaurant in Dubai, but let's not talk about that too much, even though I'm sure that there's pen going to paper soon. With the exception of Dubai and the exception of Berlin, which city would you most like to live in and do what you're doing now?
Dream world kind
Dream
of thing.
world, yep.
I'm super curious about Beirut. Can't go. So politically charged, but such a fascinating country. I've never met a Lebanese person I didn't like. I have quite a lot of Lebanese friends in Berlin. And this is like, when you come to Berlin, it's like there's like this, Israeli in Berlin, Jewish in Berlin, going to a Lebanese shop, buying Lebanese ingredients. A bit political. It's charged. You don't know how to. Do they know I'm Israeli? Are they going to ask me what I'm cooking with this? Very interesting. But it's just amazing how nice they are and how welcoming they are. And they have this amazing food. And I'd really like to try that. More realistically, probably Istanbul, because it's the same kind of a train of thought, but
Same kind of vibe.
yeah, but less politically charged for me to I can actually go there.
No, you're absolutely right. I've been to Beirut many times. Gorgeous place, and some of the most gorgeous people you'll ever meet as well. So at some stage when you go there, you'll enjoy it as much as I have as well.
Hopefully in my lifetime.
Hopefully as well. I think the world's changing in many ways, which is a really good thing. So we've only got time for a few more questions. At this stage, I'd like to open it up to the audience. If anybody would like to take the opportunity to talk to Gal, please feel free. We've got a microphone just there. Just put your hand up or move forward in front of the microphone, and you get a chance to ask him anything.
Anything.
Anything whatsoever. Ask him what he was... Oh, here's one for you. But if anybody wants to ask a question, then feel free to do so. When you're flying on a plane, right, and I'm not going to ask who you came out with, do you get really disappointed when they put that tray of stuff in front of you and you just got to somehow eat it?
True story from yesterday.
Go on then.
I was under the impression that because of the whole pandemic thing, keeping the mask on your face and all that, there is no more plane food. And I was kind of mentally prepared for 6.5 hours of not eating. And I'm Israeli, living in Berlin for 10 years. I have this non-biometric paper passport that literally got me into trouble 3 times yesterday because never mind, long story. And the thing is, I didn't get the chance to get airport food, so I was literally from 8 in the morning in Berlin, going through every plane I need to get to, like this crazy bureaucratic process. And I get to the plane to Dubai, and I'm starving. I'm so starving. And comes this ridiculous box with pasta and tomato sauce and a salad. And it was so not tasty. It was sad. Lufthansa, so bad. And
there are also other airlines which we won't mention, just like you didn't mention that one. Please, you've got to go back with them. So please.
Yeah.
All right.
I see my luggage getting in Poland or something. But it was like really, really bad. But I was so grateful to get it because I was so hungry. So I can't complain. Even though I just did.
You kind of did quite a lot. One of the lessons I learned when I was an entertainer, working in hotels and other venues, is never mention food to any of the staff who work in it for the obvious reasons. You'll never know what's coming out of the kitchen next. So you should know that better than anybody as well, but I'm sure we'll move on with that.
Yeah.
Final question for you, unless we're going to get somebody from the audience who wants to ask a question. Please, we've got a microphone just behind you. If you'd like to go and ask that question, then please do. Yeah, just go to there, because otherwise we can't hear you properly. So just stand behind that microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you properly. And are you looking to talk as well? You ask questions? Okay, so 2 questions then we'll take. You're very popular. Sorry, you don't work for that airline that we talked about, do you? You don't work for the airline that he mentioned? Okay, good, carry on.
Relaxed.
Is it on? We're just double checking it now. So many layers, wearing a mask, there's a mask on the microphone, there's social distancing.
Shout.
It's easier to phone in, probably. It should be on now, please, go ahead. Could you identify yourself and then ask your question?
My name is Noor. I'm actually Lebanese. And from Beirut. And I wanted to actually ask if you've ever received any backlash for the food that you make. Any backlash? Because you said that you wanted to incorporate many countries, you know, Lebanese and Palestinian and Israeli, and especially that there is so much tension in that region. Do you ever face any backlash for mentioning it?
Wow, that's a really welcome question.
Yeah,
That's not really putting a cat amongst the... Please go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be
No. Great question. I'm very, very careful with the whole idea of cultural appropriation. Every time somebody says, "Oh, you cook Israeli food," I'm like, no. There is no such thing. And I think it's very important to respect the other cultures in that region. Honestly, the backlash I get is mostly about my refusal to say Israeli cuisine from Israelis, not the other way around. I try to be as respectful as possible to Lebanese culture, Syrian culture, Palestinian culture, and because of that I get backlash from Israel. But that's about it.
Thank you. And on behalf of Beirut, you're welcome anytime.
There you go.
It doesn't work like that, but thank you.
You've got a date, at least, which is not bad. You've only been here 12 hours. Thank you so much for that. The gentleman would like to ask a question as well. Just identify yourself and ask the question. Feel free to throw as bad a question or as good a question. He's up for anything. So there you go.
Hi. My question is not nearly as interesting as her question. My question is not nearly as interesting as her question.
Okay, please.
I see that in your background you work with some very different chefs, like...
Can we get a little bit louder? You need to get a little bit closer to the microphone. If that's
Sure, sorry. In your background, I see you work with some very different chefs, like Grant Achatz, Jason Atherton, Marcus Waring. Can you tell me kind of what you've taken from each of those experiences that kind of informs your current aesthetic towards food?
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's very, every experience you work with someone is very singular. I am very grateful for the time, for example, that I worked in Hibiscus, because Claude Bossy taught me how to look at food in an academic perspective. In like 2008 in London, getting black garlic in the kitchen, nobody knew what it was, and treating a new ingredient in a new way. I'm not... One of the reasons I can do what I do is because I'm not emotionally involved with Lebanese food or Palestinian food or Israeli food, because I didn't get to eat that as a kid. I had a very eclectic diet. And I got from him this ability of kind of looking at things in a new way. But on the other side of it, I think going to work in Alinea was probably the most exciting I've been in my life, but also probably the least contributing training I've ever had, because I've done very grateful for the experience, yeah? And I learned a lot in the management thing, but you go to one of the most innovative kitchens in the world, and what I got from it is basically 6 techniques that I had to make 90 portions of every single day for 3 months, and then 6 new techniques. It kind of was much more rigid. So it's a very different experience in every kitchen that you go to. And I try to take from every chef that I worked for something, good or bad, to create the person that I am today.
Excellent. Thank you for the question. I'm going to leave it with one last question for myself, if that's possible. I want to look at how things are going to be in the future. So again, no pressure to predict exactly where the world is going. I remember, because you specialize in creating this wonderful Middle Eastern flavor in Europe so people can taste new stuff. The last time I saw that happen, I'm going to go really ultra geeky, is at the end of the first Avengers movie when we decided to go for a shawarma. And for anybody who's based in this country, you're going, shawarma, great idea. And we're going, what's just shawarma? And I don't even see the extra bit at the end of the movie where we're all sat around just tucking into it. Where do you see the food from this region going in the future? Do you think it will become as commonplace as that?
It's the next trend. Write it down. It's the next trend. We're having great time with this all Scandinavian thing and regional and everything. Next thing, Levantine food. It has everything. It has uniqueness, smokiness, flavor. Everything feels on steroids. And we have global warming, so you can enjoy this kitchen in Sweden and still feel in the climate. I genuinely believe this is the next thing. And the thing is, it's like I said, immigration is such an engine of society. You have all the immigrants from Syria and Lebanon and Palestine coming into Europe, getting into kitchens, low-level positions. They're going to grow up, be big chefs, do great things. This is a kitchen that has amazing history, amazing taste, amazing ingredients. This is the future. Write it down.
Wow.
Invest in Lebanese food.
There you go, and we know there we go, a few people who are believing into that as well, which is great. Well, we look forward to that, and we look forward to seeing how you pioneer that, and we look forward to hearing first about your new restaurant in Dubai, which I know we're not allowed to mention because it hasn't happened yet, but I get that little feeling that it's not going to be too long before you get grabbed and nabbed, and like myself, it's 30 years you'll be spending in this region as well. So with that, it's been an utter pleasure. Thank you so
very
much
much
for being so honest. Please put your hands together for Mr. Gal, with Chef Gal Ben Moshe. Thank you. So excellent. What we've got now, in fact, have we got Mo Magic in the room? Is he still here, or is he's doing his tour of duty? He'll be joining us shortly for that. Don't go too far, by the way. We have got an incredible next guest in about 15, 20 minutes. And this gentleman is responsible for jumping into the gap left by the restaurants and the pandemic and creating the digital relationship that people have through apps, with ordering food, with creating the brunches, and the way that Dubai has still managed to keep the culture and what's turned into what we have here. He's been a large part of the forefront. So that's Adrian John. He's responsible for a large amount of what we buy online, and he'll be sharing the secrets and where things are going to go in a digital nature very shortly. So with that, thank you so much for hanging around. I hope that you stay around. Feel free to wander over to our Taste of Food as well, which is next door. But please come back in the next 10, 15 minutes, and we've got more from Chef Talks. Thank you.